Between $400 and $600, the smartphone market is becoming intense. And in this video, I've lined up pretty much all the top contenders at this price point, and we're going to see which is the ultimate battery winner, including the new Asus Zenfone 6, which people are going crazy for. Okay, so the phones in question are the OnePlus 7 with its 3700 mAh battery, the 7 Pro with 4000, then the Zenfone 6 with a gargantuan 5000 mAh battery, followed by the Pixel with 3700, and then the Xiaomi Mi 9 with the smallest of the bunch, 3300. What I've just done is set all the smartphones to an equivalent setting, and now we're going to calibrate brightness. So I've pulled up the same Google page and I'm using a luxometer to measure the luminance of each display. They will look a little different in terms of brightness and color profile, but that is just because of the different angle they have from the camera. Alright, now all the smartphones are equivalently set up, I've unplugged the cables and we've started the test. And the first application is called Seascape. It's just a continuous, never-ending sea simulation. It's pretty realistic, and actually if I played this back at normal speed, you'd see it chugging on the Pixel 3a XL, because you might have noticed already, that is the only smartphone here which has a mid-range chip. All the other phones are powered by the Snapdragon 855, that is on the Snapdragon 670. I've also set every phone here to 1080p resolution, which in fact is the maximum resolution for everything but the OnePlus 7 Pro. When you get it out the box, that phone actually has an automatic resolution switching mode on by default, but that's a bit of an imprecise way to measure it, so we forced a 1080p resolution to keep it a level playing field. Having said that, that phone does have a 90Hz refresh rate, which is gonna put it at a battery disadvantage compared to the other phones which are at 60. But that is what the phone comes with, that is what the phone is marketed as having, and that is what most people are gonna use, so that's what we're testing it with. If you take a quick look at battery percentages, the figures on top, you can see that the Zenfone 6 is ahead, but not by as much as you might expect it to be given its massive capacity battery. The Pixel is pretty much neck and neck with it, but that might change. In between the two OnePlus phones, you can see that the 7 has already overtaken the 7 Pro, indicating that even though that phone has a smaller battery, it might still be better at supporting that phone's lower refresh rate and smaller display. In terms of the applications I'm actually running on these phones, I'm basically simulating a slightly heavier than average usage case scenario. So we started things off with lighter social media tasks, we're now at 2D gaming, and we're going to step that up to 3D gaming, and then start playing around with the camera and see what that does to battery. So far at least, you can probably see two packs forming. You've got the Zenfone 6 and the Pixel right at the top. They're still at 85%-ish after a whole hour and a half, that's really impressive. You've then got the slightly lower pack, which is the OnePlus 7, the 7 Pro, and the Xiaomi Mi 9 on the right, pretty much all neck and neck with each other. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth the Pixel is managing to keep up with the Zenfone? After all, that phone has a battery that is over 30% larger, and yet both phones have an almost identical resolution. There are two main reasons. The first one being that even though the Pixel is not much of a smaller phone than the others, its display is noticeably smaller because it has these frankly massive bezels on the top and the bottom. And so, just for a point of reference, if you compare the 6-inch display on that phone versus the 6.67 on the OnePlus 7 Pro, that's actually a difference in area of about 15%. That's kind of massive. The second thing is the chipset. So like I mentioned, every other phone here is running the Snapdragon 855 chip. And where it gets a little bit confusing is that that is actually a more efficient chip than the one on the Pixel. In terms of performance per watt, the 855 does miles better than the 670. The reason though that the 670 ends up improving battery life is because even though it is less efficient, it is so much less powerful that it still ends up drawing less power. So we're getting to the 3-hour mark and we're just wrapping up a massive 2-hour session of gaming. Given that, every single one of these phones is doing really well. So what I've done now is opened up the cameras and started recording a 4K video clip on each phone at 30 frames per second. We're going to do this 3 times before we move on. And then, if I just fast forward this bit, we're going to load up those 3 back-to-back 4K clips into a video editing program, and we're then going to hit the export button and see what that does to battery. If you take a look at the battery percentages again, there's been a bit of a shift since the last time we checked. The Xiaomi Mi 9 has fallen firmly into last position, as I suppose you'd expect given it has the smallest capacity of the bunch. On the flip side of that, even though the OnePlus 7 Pro has the second largest battery capacity of all these phones, it's not doing too much better. Clearly you can see that even though we're on 1080p, that 90Hz refresh rate is having a massive impact on the phone's battery life. Mind you, we have just passed the 4-hour mark, and anything above 5 hours in a test like this would be very solid, so hopefully they'll make it till then. Just so you've got a point of reference, on each phone we've got Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, auto-rotate, as well as location and NFC on. Pretty much everything else is off. Combining this with the fact that each display is on maximum or close to maximum brightness, and this test should be a lower limit. It should be a lower limit of what battery life to expect. You wouldn't realistically get less than what we get in this test in a normal usage case scenario. The first smartphone to go turns out to be the Xiaomi Mi 9, but we are well past the 5-hour mark, so even then, commendable battery life. OnePlus 7 Pro is almost definitely next, but that's okay. That's okay considering it's got a 90Hz display, and it's not a small one. It hangs on for a long time at 1%. I'm pretty sure at this point this is what OnePlus has programmed their phones to do, but eventually it does call it quits, and it's a fair bit ahead of the Xiaomi. The OnePlus 7, the standard one, is going to be the next to go, and it exhibits the exact same pattern of really clinging onto that last 1%. Not really something to complain about, I guess. Sure enough, it's come down to the final two smartphones, and what is most surprising is that the Pixel 3a XL, with what seems like a really mediocre 3700 mAh battery, is outperforming the Asus, and it's not even by a disputable margin. Alright, time to fast forward this test and take a look at the final order and the results. So the first phone to finish was the Xiaomi Mi 9 with a final time of 5 hours and 47 minutes. Really happy with that. That's really good battery performance, and it's made more impressive because the phone is so svelte and light. Next up, the OnePlus 7 Pro, which lasted 20 minutes longer, and yeah, that's not exactly proportional to how much larger its battery is, but it's a fair trade-off for many people for that ultra-smooth display. Then we've got the 7, which lasted well over half an hour longer than its Pro counterpart, which I can imagine for someone who is picking between those two phones makes that choice much less simple. Now, the Zenfone 6, nearly an hour longer than that. This phone is in a different league altogether. 5000 mAh battery, that's probably what you expected. What you didn't expect though was that the Pixel 3a XL won, and not by a small margin. Its final time was 8 hours. That is a record for any phone I've ever tested, which covers pretty much all the mainline flagship phones and almost every mid-tier flagship. That's incredible. If you enjoyed this video, a sub would be massively appreciated. My name is Aaron, this is Mr. Who's the Boss, and I will catch you in the next one.